What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today we're going over what I believe are the 10 most impactful moves teams have made this offseason, of course, from a fantasy football perspective. At number 10, we have Deontay Johnson and Jonathan Brooks joining the Panthers. Of course, Deontay signing, Brooks being drafted by them. Panthers were just the worst offense in the league last season, and they only really produced one fantasy relevant player in Chuba Hubbard. Now, I'm not expecting like a complete reversal this season, and I'm a little bit skeptical that Bryce Young will really ever be, a talent elevator. But with that being said, we know that Deontay Johnson is a star, and he's going to command an extremely high target share and is going to be the focal point of this passing attack. We also know that the Panthers really want to establish the run this season after taking Brooks 46th overall. There's just like no doubt in my mind that he is the favorite to lead this backfield when healthy. So while this was a pathetic offense last season, one that you were mostly just avoiding every single week unless you wanted to use Chuba Hubbard as like a low-end running back too, I do think now this season we're going to have two players that we can feel pretty good about in drafts. And who knows, right? Bryce Young was picked first overall last season. There was a lot of hype around him. Maybe he just needed someone to get open because realistically no one was getting open last season. Maybe he just needs Deontay to create a little bit of separation. Maybe Leggett is going to be better than I'm expecting. And maybe this Panthers offense can post a few more ceiling games this season and even be a little bit more productive than I'm expecting. That will probably be something I'll have to, see to believe. But I think for Deontay and Brooks, those two are set up really well this season. I think both of them can definitely succeed. At 9, we have Austin Ekeler signing with the Commanders. The Commanders, of course, already have Brian Robinson, already have Chris Rodriguez, but they did at least lose Gibson free agency, so we don't have like a 4 running back committee over there. Chris Rodriguez probably just wouldn't get touches in that scenario, but point is, at least they lose Gibson, so it's not too crowded. But yeah, not a great situation in my mind. You've got Brian Robinson, who's super touchdown dependent, right? Doesn't catch a bunch of passes, isn't highly efficient on the ground, actually is very inefficient on the ground. You've got Austin Ekeler being a pass catching specialist who spiked in value thanks to all the touchdowns that came alongside those receptions. Both of them have, of course, a rookie quarterback that's mobile. And when you think about that, you're like, okay, he's going to check down to running backs less, and he's going to steal rushing touchdowns. So Robinson has no ceiling since Ekeler is going to steal all the receptions and some of the touchdowns, and Daniels will also steal some touchdowns. Ekeler has no ceiling because Robinson and Daniels are going to steal the touchdowns, while also Daniels not checking down as much, being a much worse overall offense than he had in LA. So just kind of like a brutal signing all around. Right now on Underdog, the only real ADPs that we have this early in the offseason, Ekeler, Robinson, both going around that like round 9-10 turn, which I do think is fine because the other one could get injured. If that happens, then the ceiling is really there. But I think that sort of ADP without an injury is probably a little bit too early. I don't think I'm going to go there that much. And I definitely think, Ekeler could just be a name that people see in that like 8th, 9th round range. And they're like, oh yeah, I know Austin Ekeler. Why don't I go after him? And just the situation to me, not one I'm super excited about. 8th most impactful move is Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard signing with the Titans. I don't think either one of these moves has like a massive impact on any one player in fantasy. Like there's no Titans player that we're now like, oh my goodness, have to draft them in the top like 2 or 3 rounds. But what I think it does is it unlocks the ceiling of this offense as a whole. Last season, the offense was basically feed Derrick Henry, hope he can do everything. If he can't do everything, we're going to pepper DeAndre Hopkins with like 7 to 12 highly inefficient targets and just hope that when we get into the red zone, we get lucky with touchdown variance, and that's how we're going to win a few games, right? That made them very predictable. Of course, Derrick Henry, is better than what they have at running back now, but the offense relying solely on him and then just hyper focusing on Hopkins, it made them super predictable, and it gave them a very low weekly floor when a team was able to contain Henry, because then they just couldn't do anything. This season, they should be at least a little bit more balanced. Ridley is going to be able to, create separation on his own, get downfield, and just win in a way that allows them to not hyper focus on Hopkins, and allows it to where it's like, okay, if defenses really want to take away one of these two, they at least have that second option. They thought Treylon Burks was going to be that. Turns out he just hasn't succeeded so far. Maybe Burks can really work out as that like wide receiver 3, like maybe in a role as a 3, getting like, 4 to 6 kind of designed looks each week, maybe closer to like 3 to 5 design looks, but just getting a few each week instead of, needing to be that number 1 or number 2. Maybe that can get this offense going. And then again, of course, they lose Derrick Henry, which hurts, but at least now both of their running backs do excel in the passing attack, and so they're not going to give things away. When they bring Spears onto the field last season, you kind of knew there was a decent chance they were going to throw the football. Now, whether you have Pollard out there, you have Spears out there, you don't know if they're going to run it, if they're going to throw it. I just think their offense this season has a little bit more potential for that upside. Not saying they're going to be top 10. I don't think they're going to be top 10, but there should at least be a few more weeks where we really see that ceiling. We see them push into like 28, 30 points, to where last season it was like they just had to get lucky in the red zone, convert their 4 touchdowns and their like 4 opportunities. This season, I think it's going to be less luck, a little bit more just overall offensive improvement. At 7, we have Mixon and Diggs joining the Texans. Texans were 8th in passing yards per game last season, despite CJ Stroud and Tank Dell being rookies and Dameon Pierce busting. If you told me going into last year that it was like, oh yeah, Dameon Pierce is going to be terrible, but they're also going to be like a very easy top 10 offense, I'd be like, are you insane? Like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, did Stroud have the greatest year ever? And it's like, well, maybe. Like, he had one of the best rookie seasons we could have possibly asked for. Stroud, Dell turned into home run picks, but like Nico as well. Nico, someone that we really liked last season, but I didn't think he'd be as good as he ended up being. So you've got that young core. When you add in Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon, like, we might be looking at a top 5 offense this season, and one that we love in fantasy because it's mostly coming through the passing attack. Let's be honest, like, Joe Mixon isn't dust, but he's not some amazing early down back. They got him because he can do enough on early downs to get by, and then also he's really good in the receiving game. They are going to throw the football a ton, and we love that in fantasy. I do think it's going to be really difficult to rank Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and I'm very curious what you all think of that, because I genuinely don't know how to rank that right now. So tell me in the comment section, how would you rank those 3? Right now, I have it Diggs, Nico, Dell, with Diggs and Nico basically being tied. There's like 1 point separating them in the projections, and then Tank Dell a little bit after them. But I legitimately think any combination is completely viable, which means I'm probably going to end up with the most Tank Dell, because if I just don't know in the rankings, well, Tank Dell has the lowest ADP, so why not go with him? If I don't know who should be first, take the person who's last and hope that they end up first. But yeah, I just think this move, like both moves, really solidify the Texans as just one of the best offenses in football, which is a wild turnaround from like 2 years ago when they were easily bottom 10, probably bottom 5. 6th most impactful move was Josh Jacobs signing with the Packers. He, of course, exploded 2 years ago, right? He ends up as a league winner. He was going in like the 5th or 6th round fantasy drafts, gains 2,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, just has an unreal season. Then he kind of holds out a little bit, tries to get that new contract, leaves his franchise tag last season. Then it was tough, right? 3.5 yards per carry, just over 800 rushing yards. Not great. This offseason, the Raiders were like, nope, we're not going to sign you. I know their coach really wanted to sign him, but they decided not to give him a long-term contract. Instead, he joins the Packers. 4 years, $48 million, only 12.5 guaranteed. Let's be honest, he's not going to see all 4 years, $48 million, but 12.5 guaranteed is still a really solid amount. shows that the Packers are definitely going to utilize him as their lead back, and then also shows that after they cut Aaron Jones, now on the Vikings. So depth chart right now for the Packers: Josh Jacobs, A.J. Dillon, and Marshawn Lloyd. Who knows what that's going to work out to with Dillon and Lloyd, but Jacobs clearly their number one. In my opinion, just like how I think it's going to shake out between those two, I think they drafted Lloyd to be like that change of pace back, right? Someone that they say, you're like a different style running back than Josh Jacobs. Go out there with like 4 to 5 high value specific plays that we think are like home run plays that, maybe 2 or 3 of them turn into nothing, but we're hoping 1 or 2 of them turn into a big play, a long touchdown. Obviously not every week, but the point is, I think they're going to give him like 4 to 5 touches every week and try and create explosive plays with him. Basically saying Jacobs is our guy. We'll mix in Dillon when like Jacobs needs rest, but Jacobs never basically needs rest. He's always cool being on the field every single play. And that's exciting, right? Because like we think about how good Jacobs was on the Raiders when their offense was terrible. But the Packers are a much, much, much better offense. The Packers are a very underrated offense. They have significant upside this season. If touchdown variance goes Jacobs' way, he could score 15 to 17 touchdowns, which is awesome because he's also going to add on plenty of receptions on top of that. So significant upside for Jacobs in this offense. And at a decent ADP, I think right now he's like the running back like 8, 9, 10 in drafts. That's a pretty good value for the upside he possesses. At number 5, we have the Chargers going with Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman. Of course, Harbaugh, the head coach, Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator. And then just like the move they did after that. It's like getting both of those two guys, like, okay, running it. They're going to run the ball a ton. They're going to turn Justin Herbert into a game manager. Then they're like, no, don't want to extend Austin Eckler. Okay, further solidifies that. Okay, we're going to take an offensive lineman, 5th overall. Further solidifies that. We're going to sign Dobbins, Gus. We're going to draft Vidal. It's like every single move that they make is like, we are going to run the football a ton. We are going to have Justin Herbert be a game manager. It's just such a lock to happen this season. They did go out and get Ladd McConkey, which is good to add, another playmaker into the passing attack, but they have not invested in the passing attack. They are going to run the football a lot. It would be a little bit more exciting if they had been the team that we'll get to in a minute that signed Derrick Henry, because then you'd be like, wow, are we expecting like 350 carries from Henry this season? I do think it's going to basically be like a 3 running back committee that they're just going to ride the hot hand, rotate through them, which, is going to be really frustrating in fantasy. It's going to be fun, when like maybe there's a few week stretch where like one of these guys is really cooking and they're giving them like 20 carries and they're really producing. But good luck figuring that out right now. This is basically a situation where it's like you got to take shots late, but it's, an important move because it's like so different from the past. Like in the past, it's been like they can't really figure out the ground game. They're utilizing Austin Eckler as an extension of the ground game, but they're just throwing the ball a ton. It's just a complete reversal this season. They are not going to throw the ball a lot. They're going to run it virtually every play, which again will be frustrating in fantasy. And number 4, we have Kirk Cousins signing with the Falcons, which is basically like the opposite of the Chargers. Chargers go from pass heavy to run heavy. Reversal. We're going from run heavy to pass heavy for the Falcons. Maybe this is the breakout we were hoping would happen in the past. What we were basically saying last season was like, you've got Bijan, you've got London, you've got Pitts. All you need is a half competent quarterback to get these guys to football, and they're going to be awesome in fantasy. They could not figure out that half competent quarterback part, but now they do. Obviously, Kirk Cousins, good quarterback. I know the Falcons shocked the world, taking a backup quarterback at 8th overall in the draft when they could have instead drafted pieces to help Kirk Cousins win a championship, which I still believe is their goal. But overall, whatever happens at quarterback, right? Whatever happens there is going to be positive for their core 3 on offense. Like maybe Cousins goes in there, he balls out. The Penix pick just looks terrible in hindsight. They could have added another piece, could have really elevated this offense or helped out the defense. But in that scenario, all 3, again, Bijan, London, and Pitts, all 3 end up being great in fantasy. Maybe we look back on this and we're like, making fun of the Cousins signing because Penix just turns into being like a stud. The Falcons look like idiots for giving him, Cousins $100 million guaranteed when they have Penix, and now they're not even using Cousins. But in that scenario, all three look great. So again, it really doesn't matter what ends up happening with this quarterback situation. My guess was what's going to happen there is that Cousins is going to be the guy this season, the guy for most of next season. But I think at some point next season or maybe the year after, they start being like, you know what, we really like we have in Penix here, and they really start to push starting him. But I think this year it's probably going to be Cousins. And I also think, again, it doesn't matter. This is just great for these skill players in the Falcons. This is what we were hoping would happen last season. And, the significant upside that we knew was there last year is probably going to present itself this season. Third most impactful move is the Bears just having a completely new offense this season. Like the upgrades from the Bears, it's like difficult to overstate that. Like they upgraded Justin Fields into Caleb Williams, Darnell Mooney into Rome Odunze, Tyler Scott into Keenan Allen, and then Donta Foreman into DeAndre Swift. Like this offense was a complete and utter train wreck at times last season. And now, it's the Bears, so they're going to figure out a way to screw it up. But we should be placing very high expectations on this offense. Right now, I have Caleb Williams as the quarterback 11, Swift running back 23, DJ Moore wide receiver 18, Keenan Allen wide receiver 28, Rome Odunze wide receiver 30, and then Cole Kmet as the tight end 15. If you're drafting on Underdog right now, which you should be since they just released a $3 tournament that's filling very quickly, but you should be drafting right now. Just kind of take advantage of some early ADPs. I'm going to release a newsletter tomorrow for you guys that kind of talks about the benefit of drafting at all points of the offseason, how you can kind of take advantage of ADPs. But if you're drafting right now, I would make it a point to put together some Bears stacks. You need to walk out of a draft with like 7 or 8 players in the Bears, but I would make it a point to be drafting some of these guys because this is a team I could easily see getting hype this summer. Like if reports keep coming out that Caleb Williams looks amazing and that Odunze is as good as we think and Keenan Allen is still Keenan Allen and DJ Moore is still DJ Moore, we're going to be like, wait a minute, this offense is going to score a ton of points and we know exactly where the ball is going. Like we don't know which player is going off every week, but we know someone is. It's going to be a team you're going to want exposure to, so I would definitely be attacking them right now. At number 2, Saquon Barkley signing with the Eagles. They gave him 3 years, $37.75 million deal with $26 million guaranteed. That is a massive number to guarantee. Remember, Jacobs was 12.5, so $26.5 million guaranteed for Saquon Barkley. That is an insane number to guarantee a running back in today's NFL, and it shows you're going to give him a lot of opportunities. Saquon finished last season 9th in points per game. That's despite being on a Giants offense that could not figure itself out. 30th with only 15.6 actual NFL points per game. Second to last with 170 passing yards per game. Saquon just gets the biggest upgrade you could imagine, right? Like he's going from an offense that was putrid, awful, was basically try and give Saquon the ball and see if he can win us a game, to an offense that has elite playmakers at all positions with a quarterback that's hypermobile as well, but is also good in the passing game and isn't throwing absolute scrubs. You've got A.J. Brown. You've got Devonta Smith. Teams cannot focus on taking away Saquon Barkley when you've got those playmakers on the outside. And what I think is exciting about this is it kind of changes draft strategy for fantasy, right? Last season, let's say you wanted to go hero RB. You kind of had to do it from an early or a middle first round pick. Like there wasn't really an option in the late first round. If you had a late first round pick, you were basically just double dipping at wide receiver. This season, if you want to go hero RB, you can do it from any pick in round 1. Like Saquon right now is going at the turn, and he obviously has running back 1 overall upside with the Eagles. And so, it's just going to present different draft strategies. It's going to present a draft strategy where people go double running back in round 1, which was definitely not there last season. But I think the exciting one is hero. If you really wanted to go hero RB now from like that 10, 11, 12 pick, you can, and you're not sacrificing and you're not saying like, okay, if I get lucky, like you don't have to get that lucky. Saquon's going to be very, very good this season. So I think that's the exciting part about this move. But yeah, he's going to be awesome in fantasy. Then finally, single biggest offseason change, in my opinion, is Derrick Henry signing with the Ravens. Like if you wanted, one dream team for Derrick Henry, it was Baltimore. It's not me saying he's going to be the running back 1 overall. Of course, I do not have him ranked that high. But in terms of like landing spots for Henry, this one's pretty sweet. I mean, you've got a highly efficient offense, an offense that it seemed like for like years, any running back you threw back there could average 5 yards per carry. Perfect fit for Henry's skill set because he's not going to be asked to do anything through there. It's all going to be on the ground, which is obviously where he is best. And I'm just excited to see what he can do with Lamar at quarterback. Like, what does a defensive end even do on a read option play? Like you run a read option, there is no correct decision to make there for a defensive end. In terms of ADPs, Henry is a late 3rd round pick right now on Underdog. And redraft, that probably means he's going at like the 2-3 turn. Imagine being able to start off a redraft draft with like Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, and then like a wide receiver like Olave. We're going hero RB from round 3 and going CD, Devonta Adams, and Derrick Henry. Like at that ADP, it just opens up such an insane ceiling of what you can do from a roster construction standpoint because let's be honest, the reception totals will be low, but Derrick Henry has legitimate 20 touchdown upside this season, which is not something you can say about basically every other running back that is not like Christian McCaffrey, maybe Bijan, maybe Breece Hall, and maybe Saquon Barkley. But you're probably pushing it with everyone that is not McCaffrey. Derrick Henry has awesome league-winning upside this season. So if you watched this far, be sure to leave a like. If you want that access to the free newsletter I referenced before, sign up for it in the description box down below. That, my friends, is in this one. Hope you all did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting the like button? How about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.